And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host, Derek Havens. Joining me as always is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. And today we are welcoming Taylor Kyles from CLNS Media covering the Patriots. Really happy to have him on. We'll be kind of touching around the same kind of interview format we've been doing the last couple of weeks, but really interested to pick his brain because he does all the nitty gritty, dirty work. Taylor, so happy to talk to you today, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to be talking to you, fellas. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we've been remiss about not having you on.
Hey, better late than never. I'm just happy to be here, man. Again, thank you.
So first of all, Taylor, let's start with OTAs. Obviously kicked off. We're recording this Wednesday, May 22nd. OTA started Monday. I know there's not a whole lot to glean from that whole situation. Being, having been there and covered an OTA before, as has Steve. What have you taken away so far?
So the biggest one, obviously, start with the quarterbacks. The arm strength for these young guys the Patriots drafted is next level. And you kind of got to see where, when you heard about the evaluations for Drake Maye, it was noted that he has a really good arm, but it felt like, some of the people who really did their digging made sure to kind of temper. It's like he gets the Josh Allen and Justin Herbert comparisons. He's not quite that. I think he's got A- arm strength, which is still fantastic. Then you see Joe Milton. And it's like, that's what A+ arm strength looks like. It just, the ball flies out of their hand, but it's just a different level for Milton. So it's still really cool considering last season you're watching, Mack and Bailey Zappi, and no disrespect to them, they are what God made them, and he did not give them the strongest arms. And even Jacoby Brissett, you really see that he's been in the system before. He looks like a veteran. Everything looks really smooth. The footwork is good. He's accurate. So he definitely stood out as the top dog. But Drake Maye's footwork also really getting to see it up close now that he's working with Alex Van Pelt, someone who more than most offensive coordinators or quarterbacks coaches is very big on a specific style of footwork. I even asked Drake Maye, you put your left leg up, for example, in the shotgun, whereas most people will put the right foot up or they'll kind of have a staggered stance. So little things like that. And you can see he's taken to the coaching. He's very deliberate in his footwork. You don't see a lot of the inconsistencies. Obviously still working through some things. It's very early in the process, but it's good to see that clearly, he's trying to improve in that way. And then just, some of the ways that they're using some players, like Antonio Mafi was snapping at center. You're seeing, City So, who played left guard in college, going back to his natural position, with Cole Strange likely not even going to make his debut until the regular season. So that's the kind of value, is you're seeing how they view players, where they're trying to see if players fit, and also just some of the physical talent you're really able to see up close, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different directions to go with just what you just said. But let's start with Maye, because obviously that's kind of, the biggest point of emphasis of the entire offseason. You go back to the footwork. It seems like that's really a point of emphasis for the coaching staff and for him. The way Steve, I know we didn't get to talk pre-draft, but Steve and I both have been big Drake Maye fans. I'm not sure where you stood on that whole thing. But there's so I want to get your take on that, if you were happy with that selection and everything. The second thing is you look at him like a big ball of clay, right? I mean, he's a young kid, great traits, seems like he comes from a great family. There's a lot of things to like from a trait and intangible quality, but it's really just about getting him to the right spot. Do you think the coaching staff in place is going to be able to get him there?
So speaking of whether I was excited, I was over the moon. Drake Maye was my guy.
Yeah, we were too.
If they had a shot at Caleb Williams, I would not have been mad. I think he's a phenomenal, potentially kind of borderline generational type talent, where some of the things he's able to do physically and also just the way he sees the game, it's kind of hard to see him not having a great career. Sure. I like Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of things too, obviously with the running ability, with the accuracy deep downfield, the processing. He's probably the most mature quarterback in this class because he was in college for so long. But I had a lot of concerns about his game, whereas Drake Maye, obviously not the bulkiest guy, but he's tall. He's about I think he said 219 or something like that. He has more size to put on as well. He's only 21 years old.
Did you see, sorry to cut you off. Are you a Celtics fan at all?
I am by affiliation. Now that I'm in Boston, I'm a football junkie. I don't really watch a lot.
That's all right. I was only asking because Maye was at the game 1 last night in the Eastern Conference Finals, and he was with Tatum. And I mean, Tatum, I don't think is a bulky dude. I was like, dang, Maye looks kind of skinny compared to Tatum. I was like, he's got some frame. He's got some frame to fill out there a little bit. Which is surprising because you look at his size and you're like, oh, okay, well, he's a pretty big kid. But then you look at it, you're like, no, he could put on some weight still and be all right.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not Jaden Daniels level where you're just like, I don't really know if he can put on more weight. He can, but definitely still early on in his progression. And he's only probably been working out like intensely in training for a couple years. So in his development, he's still got a long way to go, which is exciting. But yeah, man, the physical tools, not even just that, I think people can get kind of swept away by, oh, what can this guy do? And look at the highlights and all that. But then when you kind of look at the bigger picture, there's things missing, like most of the time from like a mental standpoint. For Drake, obviously it's not perfect, but for a 2-year starter who's only 21 years old, the way that I've seen him attack defenses, the way he processes when he's really on point, it's not very common for a guy with his experience and his age, which is what really got me excited, where it's like, well, if you go into a system like an Alex Van Pelt, where he's someone who's played the position, can kind of relate in that way, almost like a Bill O'Brien, just someone who really knows how to work with quarterbacks and get in their heads, but kind of a different temperament where I think Van Pelt, he'll get on you, but it's not really the teapot. Like he's not Bill O'Brien where he's probably going to read out. He's a little more low-key than that. Obviously, as an offensive coordinator, there's a lot that we have to learn about Alex Van Pelt. I don't want to assume too much right now, but in terms of working with quarterbacks, you haven't really heard anything negative. Baker Mayfield swears by him. Aaron Rodgers was really upset when he ended up getting fired from Green Bay. So I'm really excited for that pairing. I think Van Pelt's emphasis on, like we said, the footwork and the mechanics, I think that will be great for Drake, considering his last year in college was kind of the opposite, where he was in an air raid system where, unlike the West Coast, where it's very detail oriented, your footwork tells you where to go in your progression and everything has to kind of be on the same page. The air raid is more your attacking space. Like he's kind of, if you look at it, his drop back sometimes looks like a John Elway kind of, where it's like, all right, we're going back to like way before people were preaching footwork and all that stuff really intensely, where it looks a little bit unstructured. He still made it work, and you did get to see, well, he doesn't have to have good footwork or good mechanics to succeed. He can still be accurate when everything's out of whack, which you see in all the young quarterbacks. Like Jordan Love, somebody gets compared to all the time. You see him making crazy throws and nothing looks right, and that's what you kind of need in a league where these defensive lines are so stacked. It can be really difficult to always throw with a perfect platform, but you just want to see the consistency build, and I think that's where Van Pelt's really going to come handy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great take, 100%. Let me ask you one more follow-up, and then Steve, I'll throw it over to you. What are your, as you took a deep dive into Drake Maye's film from 2022 to 2023, what were your concerns? Obviously, we know that his 2022 film was a lot better than his 2023. Okay, and there was a lot of different reasons for that. What did you take away from his 2023 film that you either feel good, bad about? Like, well, give me your take on that whole thing.
So good. I really like the fact that he's aggressive. Like, you talk about sometimes he can force throws, but I still think that's overblown. He had like a 1.9% turnover-worthy play rate. That was one of the best in college football. It was like 0.1% higher than Jaden Daniels, who gets all this love for being someone who protects the football. And that's the kind of thing where you'd rather have a guy who's aggressive and have to rein him in than someone who's more of a check down Charlie, and then you're asking him to throw downfield. Like, that's a whole different beast, where once you get comfortable in the NFL, like you've seen it with Josh Allen when it's good Josh Allen. You've seen it with Patrick Mahomes, where these uber talented quarterbacks, when they get with the right offensive coordinators and coaches, they're able to, and then obviously when you get game experience, you're like, I can't do this, some of the weird off-script stuff he does where he'll get sacked and still make a throw and complete it. You'll see the other end of the spectrum where he tries to make a throw at the last second, and sometimes it's a strip sack or he kind of throws into bad looks. Those kinds of things you learn with experience, but really more than the negative, it's more positive, because there's so many things that you look at and you're like, if we can weed out the bad, which is really just mechanical. The mental stuff I think is going to come with time and, game reps, but you can't teach a lot of the things that he's doing in terms of the arm strength, being able to attack the middle of the field and the outside. That's maybe the biggest thing that really excited me about Jaden was you look at Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr., not necessarily that they can't throw over the middle of the field. Just because a guy doesn't do something in college very often doesn't mean he can't. But for older guys, it's alarming that you don't see them attack the middle as often as a Drake Maye or even a J.J. McCarthy. But for J.J. McCarthy, he doesn't really attack the outside very well. That's where you start to see all the issues with his arm, where he's got his zip, but he doesn't have a lot of touch, which makes it difficult for him to complete those passes outside the numbers. And especially when he's throwing to his left, things can kind of get out of whack. You see issues with Drake Maye, but he's attacking on goes. He's attacking on crossing routes, on posts. He loves the middle. And that's where really you're going to have the most success in the NFL, because if you can anticipate, if you can process, and you can show that willingness to attack some of those murkier looks where on the outside a lot of time you're getting one-on-one matchups, which are easier to kind of diagnose. Those are the things, again, in a young quarterback that really get you excited. So there are things he needs to clean up, but really what I noticed from last year's film was, damn, this guy is doing a lot of things that we didn't see from Mac Jones the entire time he was here. Not the best comparison, obviously. The Patriots didn't do a lot to help Mac Jones, but the promise and the things that you're hoping he can do once the negatives are kind of refined out of him, you're looking at a guy who could be a perennial all-pro, Pro Bowl type of quarterback.
Yeah, and I think we just have to have a little patience, like collectively, media-wise, fan-wise. I just think it's going to take a little time to get him to that point. But I think your point about the middle of the field is huge. I thought that was noticeable. I did think him losing Josh Downs was a big loss for him, going from 2022 to 2023. Steve, what do you got? Where do you want to go with it?
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about, we talked about his age. He's only 21, but he shows a lot of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys rave about him. Yeah,
I mean, we heard about that in North Carolina. They actually had him mic'd up the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's all small stuff, but I like the fact that, he's showing leadership right off the bat. It doesn't seem forced at all. And I love the fact that, Maye and the two new receivers, Baker and Polk, they all seem to sense that they have an opportunity to build something here, and they seem joined at the hip, which I love. And I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so when the Patriots were talking about quarterbacks, like way before the draft, Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo kept emphasizing intangibles much more than they were talking about physical skills. They're like, all these guys are talented. But, he brings up Tom Brady and Joe Burrow as guys who can get hit and get back up. And then, being able to be a guy that people want to rally around him. When you see, again, a guy get absolutely cut in half by an edge rusher, and then he just bounces up and keeps going, that's something that gets the rest of the team fired up. Gerard Mayo said when he was a player, that was the kind of thing that really got people going. So, one, the on-field stuff was really good to see, that he is someone who you feel like can lead an offense really when bullets are flying. But off the field, the fact that, like you mentioned in the video that was released, he's talking to Polk and Baker about specifically coming back to the ball and being quarterback friendly, which they're both really good at looking at their college tape. He mentioned like missing to the outside, like that constant communication is what you want to see. Even on the hill, like you mentioned how he comes from a great family, Derek. I think where that translates is he's very competitive, and you see it. It feels like they have a basketball hoop in the locker room, and I think that's an area of emphasis is they want to continually breed a level of competition, but he also knows where the line is. Where, like, when you're competing with families, sometimes, you go too far, you learn your lessons, but you kind of get a vibe where I can be competitive, but sometimes you got to know how to harness it. And when you see the sprints, he's like, hey, man, I'll go, but you got to run with me. I'll beat you in a race. Like, it's always playful. It's fun. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he keeps the main thing. And that's really exciting to see, again, for a young guy. When you read scouting reports before the draft, it was mentioned that, he's going to have to grow into the role of being a team leader where he's still a young guy. He's kind of like pie in the sky. Everything's nice. And, you don't want to take that out of him necessarily, but there is some learning he's going to have to do as he grows and matures, which is natural. But the foundation of being someone who people seem to gravitate towards, all the rookies, when they were asked about him, talked about how vocal he was, how he communicated, how he led in the huddle. You heard that about Mac Jones, and I think that was true as well. But this is a different guy where I feel like he's a little bit looser in his attitude. And to be very honest, when Mac was kind of, showing that level of confidence, there was a little thing in the back of your head where it's like, yeah, but you're not really that guy. Like, it always me, and I was like, hey, man, if you produce, I'm not going to say anything. But then when it got bad, things started to look a little weird, and I feel like he kind of lost.
But that's that tightrope walk, right? Like if you, and this is not really I don't want to turn this into like a dump on Mac session. Like I wasn't a big Mac fan, but like he did have that confidence, like you're saying. He did have that kind of like, swagger, I guess you could say, at times, but he really wasn't producing enough to really kind of carry it. So it just kind of turns into more like annoying, where Drake Maye, like, we'll see. I think he has the physical traits to kind of put it on his back, and we'll find out what happens with it. But it is kind of, it is a fine line when you from a leadership standpoint, if you're that guy and you have that kind of attitude, it's like you really got to put up or shut up.
Yeah, exactly. And the talent doesn't mean anything if you don't use it. But
Sure.
I mean, again, we have tape on Drake Maye. This isn't a guy who's got a lot of talent. You're just like, oh man, if only he knew how to use it. He knows how to use it. He's just got to refine it.
No, that's Joe Milton. We'll get to him.
Yeah, again, to the main point for Steve, the off-field stuff is very impressive. Love what we're seeing from him. And again, like I think his emphasis on his family, I love too, because it shows you this is a guy who's got some great perspective, where he's like, if you get me, you're getting my whole family. And that's the kind of thing you want to see with someone who understands that they have a responsibility and opportunity in front of them, but also we're going to surround themselves with people who will keep them grounded. And I mean, you got 3 older brothers. I think it's going to be pretty hard to get a big head in a situation like that.
Well,
I can't
like
believe all his
Brady
brothers,
with his older sisters,
For sure. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing.
He used
And
to talk-
Brady even having a harder time where he got humbled very early. And I feel like
I couldn't believe the pictures I couldn't believe the pictures on draft night with him and his brothers, and like his brothers were all like bigger than he was. I was like, Jesus, that poor family's milk bill growing up was huge.
Hey,
go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to switch gears just a little bit. You wrote a really good film study on Javon Baker. I read that like 3 or 4 times, and I watched the clips on it. You know, a lot of people when they drafted him, they heard, oh, he's got contested catch ability, and everyone had nightmares, and I saw it all over social media. N'Keal Harry, and I think that's doing a great disservice to this kid. And I wanted to, I first of all, I wanted to encourage our listeners to check out your film study on Baker because I thought it was fantastic. But I wanted to get your feelings on him and fill in our listeners about how this guy could potentially be a real game changer for the Patriots.
Yeah, so the contested catch stuff, he is really good in that area, and he's special. The way he can high point the ball, make adjustments in the air, I think he's really good in that area of his game. But also, he's a separator. Like, this is a guy who I think is one of the better route runners in the entire draft class. Only reason he really slipped was also point out he was a recruit for Alabama. He was at Alabama while Drake Maye was actually a recruit as well. So this isn't a guy who lacks in talent. It was really more that there's some inconsistencies with drops. You know, there are some areas of his game you'd like to see cleaned up, where I still thought that he was a guy where if he was taken at like the bottom of the second, I would have understood. I thought maybe like 3rd round, 4th round was a great value and a steal.
Agreed.
But in my piece, I kind of compared him to Amari Cooper in the vein of Alex Van Pelt's system. Obviously, Amari Cooper is a potential like fringe Hall of Fame talent. I don't want to make it seem like Javon Baker is going to be necessarily him. But when you look at their measurables, Cooper is bigger, like a little bit bigger. He's a little bit faster, but the rest of their measurables are very comparable. And they're both, I think, going to play similar roles, where Cooper was primarily the X receiver for Cleveland. Or in other words, he was the guy where if they have 3 receivers to one side, he's the isolated guy who's going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. And most of the time when the Browns saw man coverage, they're like, all right, easy button. We're just going to throw it to Amari. And that's what I think Javon Baker can be, because he's a really athletic player. He does a great job and clearly understands how to manipulate defenders to put them in disadvantageous positions and then get himself open. And when he doesn't separate, like we mentioned, he can also make contested catches. He's really tough. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough is his ability when he catches the ball, he immediately becomes a ball carrier. Like, he'll catch it and you'll see he'll turn and have a feel for where defenders are and then make really quick adjustments, which allows him to maximize yards after the catch. Also really tough, where you'll see like there was a couple plays where he'll get the ball on the flat. A guy's coming at him with a full head of steam. He eats the contact, shrugs the guy off, and then keeps going. And beyond that, I think it's the mentality, where I've gotten to speak to a couple of his coaches. I'm speaking to another one of his coaches actually later on today, and everyone talks about how relentless his work ethic is, where you see the video where he's, you know, people may have taken it the wrong way. Like, he had some pretty loud comments where he's talking about like, I mean,
people in wheelchair stand up. Yeah, that was it.
Like, you know, there's not 10 receivers better than me. But his coaches are telling me, like, he's a quiet guy. This is not someone who talks a lot. He really puts in the work. So for him to talk, that tells you that he's pissed off and he's really trying to prove something. So I think a lot of times in the scouting community, you say that talent sets the floor, but your character and your work ethic set the ceiling. And that's what really excites me, is the talent's clearly there. This is a guy like Drake Maye, like a Jalen Polk as well. I think these guys are going to put in the work to be the best they can be. And if they hit their ceilings, that's going to be scary for the NFL. And I think they're going to maybe catch some people by surprise as a trio.
Since we're talking about the draft, and I'll steal a question from Steve from our last interview. Give me your favorite and your least favorite draft pick from the Patriots this year. Obviously, I want to exclude Drake Maye. I might have to exclude Javon Baker just because of what we just talked about. So give me your favorite and your least favorite pick of the draft.
Yeah, I'm glad you excluded Maye and Baker. So I was like, I already talked about them. I don't want to repeat it. I love those guys. The values were great. I'd say Jaheim Bell. That was a pretty crazy
in the 7th round. I was shocked by that.
Like I was seeing him going in the 4th and 5th, and just because he's inconsistent as a blocker and he's kind of a stiff mover who hasn't shown really his ceiling yet, I was like, 4th or 5th is a little rich. I feel like he's really going to be a rotational guy. Even at his ceiling, I don't think he's going to be a starter, but like a heavy guy where, there's guys who are backups where they go in because you're trying to keep other guys fresh. Then there's role players where it's like you are specifically game planning to make sure they get touches and are involved. I think that's what Jaheim Bell will be, but more in the vein of like an Anthony Jennings, where Jennings is elite at what he does, but you don't want him on the field for every play. And I think that's kind of Jaheim because, one, he's an explosive athlete. One thing looking at him the first time that I didn't love was that you do see their stiffness in his routes and kind of as a mover where he'll make guys miss in space, but it's kind of like he's turning like a tugboat. It's not like, ooh, made you miss. It's more like steering guys. But he is fast where if you give him space, you let him run up the seam, he's blowing past linebackers and he can get over the top of safeties. He's got really good ball tracking ability. You'd like to see him attack the ball in the air more. There's too many times I thought where he let the ball get into his body. Sometimes that led to drops. But clearly, he doesn't have bad hands. I think it's more he needs more confidence in them more consistently. But then you talk about the versatility where as a receiver, I like his versatility better. As a blocker, I think it's less versatile and more you need to scheme him up and give him opportunities where he can be at his best. You don't want him in line. I don't think you really want him at the point of attack, really making single blocks very often. Right now, he could develop into that, but he's got the physicality and the effort. So really from there, it's more about technique because he is kind of an undersized guy. He's not a use check. I've seen so many comps to use check. Kind of like Debo, like Juice and Debo are in their own categories. No one should ever compare anybody to them. I think that's where I've kind of gotten over the past couple of years. But in a similar role, I understand where he's like an H-back. He's a fullback where, he's more taking on second level defenders and you're giving him better matchups rather than like a Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, where they're probably going to be on double teams and blocking, defensive linemen. But yeah, the value for Jaheim Bell I thought was fantastic. I read some scouting reports that mentioned when he got to Tuscaloosa, was originally at South Carolina, then went to Florida State. People loved him there. Apparently the players, he really fit in pretty quickly there. And his versatility, his ability to play a lot of different roles, he seemed like it wasn't a big deal to him to learn different positions. He was like, hey, whatever the coach told me to do, I'm good with it. So in a lot of different ways, I think he's a guy that you can definitely get excited about as someone who's just going to be, maybe get like 10, 15 snaps a game max until maybe he earns a bigger role. But I think he's someone who can get you chunk plays and explosiveness, which they don't really have at the tight end position.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things too about the Bell pick. I mean, the value, of course, the player. I think the Anthony Jennings comparison is kind of interesting. I hadn't heard that, but I really agree with it. I just think you can see a role for him on this team. Like if you just look at the depth chart, just like the way it opens up, like you can kind of see where that would kind of gain some momentum. So give me your least favorite draft pick.
I would say Joe Milton. Honestly,
Okay.
And you guys know me. I try to lean more on the optimistic side before the season starts. Like once we see what happens, I'm not trying to fluff anything that's not there. But right now, it's all speculation pretty much. So
speaking of Deuce from our pre-show conversation, that was also his pick. But I'm curious. I'm curious if your reasoning, I guess, would be similar or not.
Yeah, for me, I thought there were guys who could actually contribute at that point in the draft. Whereas Joe, I don't even know if he's going to make the team. He seems more like a practice squad guy. I think the entire league, he's a 6th-round pick. The league knows he's very much a developmental prospect. He's not there yet. Like this guy who got taken later than Bailey Zappi, even though he's clearly got way more talent. I know there's been some talk about him moving to tight end. Can they try it? Sure. But I like to remind people that switching positions in the NFL is not easy. Like you can be a great athlete. There's a lot of great athletes out there, but they've been playing tight end for like their entire lives, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and they're still learning. So it's not like you just plug this guy into a new position and he's immediately going to be good at it. So that kind of thing, I'm going to wait until I see it. I'm not going to assume that he's at any point in his career going to be a tight end. He also sounded like he didn't want to. He sounds like he thinks he's a quarterback. Whether that's going to keep him in the NFL, I don't know. But I just don't think he plays the position in a way where it's easy to be enthusiastic about his future. The talent's there for sure. But in terms of processing, in terms of accuracy, like even at the draft, like the way he kind of like does that thing where he would backpedal, then stop, wait for guys to get further down the field, and then throw to kind of show, hey, I can throw it 70 yards. You also saw that in college, but it would mess up the timing where you're letting defenders get back into the play, or you're kind of just making it an awkward situation where the ball's not coming out when the receiver's necessarily expecting it. And that was kind of something you saw in different throws all over the field. And he doesn't really know how to take steam off the ball. He's doing a little bit better. I think at the Senior Bowl, he was all right when it came to throwing underneath. In practice, I think there were some shades of like, okay, I think he's at least working on it. But I think he has such a long way to go. And for me, accuracy can go into a couple buckets where people say Drake can't improve his accuracy, but I think he can because it's more footwork. You've seen him make all the throws with touch, lay throws, all those things. It's like, no, you just need him to be consistent. He can do it. Joe, there's a ton of throws I've never seen him make. Can he? Maybe, but I haven't seen them. And I feel like his version of accuracy is more understanding I need to take something off. I need to, float this over a linebacker. And really, he's just throwing at one speed where it's a fastball every time. And that's where I'm not sure if he really understands how to play that part of the position. So he's just such a projection. I get the gamble, but I would have maybe preferred they get a contributor. But, I understand the pick, but that's why it's my least favorite. Because everybody else, I think, is going to have a role in this team at some point this season. Makes
sense. I mean, hey, there were rumors about a lot of Tennessee. There were several Tennessee receivers who wore 2 pairs of gloves, literally, because he threw the ball so hard.
It's not good. I heard people not happy about it. Like receivers would actually kind of get pissed off. I'm like, dude, seriously, like you're
going to break my fingers at some point.
This is my livelihood. Please, relax.
There's Alex Barth from 98.5. I want to credit him for this. I thought it was so funny. I don't know if you've ever heard this line where he's like, if you need Joe Milton to throw the ball 85 yards, he can throw it 85 yards. If you need Joe Milton to throw a 5-yard slant, he'll throw it 85 yards. And I think that is hilarious. I do think that it's interesting, honestly, just with him, just because obviously the arm talent's there, the size is there. I mean, he looked like Cam Newton out there just in terms of like his stature at the rookie premiere, with all the other guys around him. Like some of the guys he's with are all like 6'3", 6'4", and he's just looking like a, like RoboCop out there. It's like, Jesus, this guy's a different beast, but there's a lot of refinement there too, so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Steve, where do you want to go next?
Well, I just wanted to ask one more follow-up. Do you think if they keep Milton on the roster, is there a possibility they use him as a gadget type guy on occasion, like possibly like the Saints do with their gadget type quarterback?
I think it's possible, but at the same time, Drake, you can have a wide open playbook with him. He's also a very good runner. He led UNC in rushing in 2022. And in terms of scrambles, the only guy who's been more productive in the past couple seasons was Jaden Daniels. So I think if you want to do QB run stuff, unless you're worried about Drake getting hurt, there's no reason to put Joe Milton in there, especially because if he's in there, that it's probably not going to be a pass downfield because they're going to try to use his athleticism more than they're going to use him as a passer. If you're going to throw, just keep Drake Maye in the game. And then in Cleveland, when you saw the more unconventional looks, it was like Kareem Hunt as a Wildcat quarterback or Harrison Bryant on quarterback sneaks. It wasn't really putting a whole different quarterback in the game. And again, while Joe Milton has a ridiculous arm, Drake Maye still has a well above average, I would say a great arm, and he also has better touch and accuracy. So could I see it? Yes. Although, I don't think that Joe Milton makes the roster because I think that should go to somebody who can contribute. Like if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, I think it's got to be Drake Maye. And if anything, I think Bailey Zappi should be like either the backup if you don't want to throw Drake Maye in, or if Jacoby, God forbid, gets hurt and then Drake Maye is in the game, you need a backup. I still think it should be Bailey Zappi. I just don't think Milton's a guy who can really contribute in the league right now. So is it possible? Yes, but I don't really foresee that, no.
Do we have you for another 10 minutes, Taylor? Are you cool with
sure.
it? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let's get into, I guess, when we think Drake Maye is going to start. I know this is kind of pulling it out for me. I don't know if you have the schedule in front of you or if you've already looked at it, or like how much time do you think until you expect him to be under center?
When you mention the schedule, I think the NFL is expecting him to play by midseason or the last quarter of the season. Because
Okay.
after the halfway mark this year, they're playing the Bears, which
Yep.
obviously 2 top 3 picks. I don't think that's a coincidence. Then they play, I believe, the Cardinals at some point. Again, 2 top 5 picks in Drake and Marvin Harrison Jr. And then in the last quarter of the season, you get 2 games of Josh Allen and a game of Justin Herbert. 2 guys that a lot of people have been comparing Drake Maye to. So I think the schedule makers definitely had something cooking there. My expectation, I don't think they're going to put a timeline on it. I think it's mostly going to be dependent on how Drake Maye looks behind the scenes. If he's killing it in practice and it gets to a point where the coaches and like it'll be obvious to the players probably first. And if the coaches get to a point where they're like, Drake gives us a better chance to win than Jacoby does, you put him in because he's the future. There's no reason. I think he's got the mental toughness and the talent and the intelligence to be pretty solid as a rookie. He'll make his mistakes, but I think it's going to be more good than bad. But also, if Jacoby's playing well and this team is hovering at like 500, poking its head maybe above that, I think you stick with Jacoby. If Jacoby plays well, I could see him playing the entire season. Because at the end of the day, you're doing what's best for the team. I think Gerard learned that from Bill, and they've been saying it's about competition. If Jacoby Brissett's hot, and we saw with Cleveland, where they probably made a mistake where Cleveland wasn't doing great. I think at this time they were under 500, but Jacoby was clearly a good quarterback and worked well with the offense.
Right.
Of Deshaun Watson in there, not the same thing. I think Drake Maye is miles better than Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson goes in there and looks like a guy who hasn't played football in years, and then that just turned into a bad situation where it's like, why isn't Jacoby going to play? This doesn't make any sense. He's clearly the better guy. So I wouldn't be surprised if Drake Maye doesn't play as a rookie. Again, if we do see Jacoby play well. But besides that, I think if Drake Maye does prove in practices, hey, I'm the guy, I can give you more than what Jacoby can give you, although there may be some speed bumps, I think you put him in. I don't really see them saying, oh, it's got to be by midseason or it's got to be by the last quarter. They may have a time where they like to see him in there, but it's all going to come down to Drake Maye, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to put a timeline on it. I think the Bears would make a lot of sense. I'm looking at the schedule right now. It's November 10th. And so if he started that Bears game, he'd have 8 games to finish out the season. I think it's really going to be dependent on how the team kind of manages, especially those first 6 or 7 games, because it's a brutal start. I mean, it's really a tough start. A lot of good quarterbacks. It's going to be testing the defense. What do you see if we switch gears from the offense a little bit? And I do want to get on Jalen Polk a little bit before we go, but like if we switch gears to defense, obviously you have Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington, and I thought Covington probably did the best job of any positional coach for the team last year. I just thought that the defensive line was on balance really good. Obviously Mayo and Covington are kind of disciples of Bill, right? But I still don't know. I still don't think it's fair to say that we know what kind of defense they're going to run. Do you think, like, do you have any idea of what kind of defense they're going to run, and like how confident are you on that side of the ball?
So from what we've heard, this defense is going to be more of an evolution than a change. So it's probably just going to be kind of incremental things. They have emphasized pass rush. That's something that we keep hearing is they want to get after the passer. Obviously, losing Judon hurt them a lot in that area last season.
Sure.
But one thing that Christian Barmore actually said in OTAs I thought was interesting, he mentioned 4-man fronts. And the way he said it, it kind of rushed past it where I'm not sure if he really should have said it. I don't want to read too much into that. That was just kind of my take where I was like, I haven't heard that yet. And then again, he immediately kind of switched gears and started talking about
He's like, oh shit. let's just brush by that.
I mean, to his credit, it went right under the radar. I think I was the only person whose ears kind of poked up and was like, But if we're talking about pass rush, so the Patriots typically use 5-man fronts where you have the 3 big defensive tackles and then 2 outside linebackers. But typically, one of those outside linebackers is an Anthony Jennings or Jelani Tavai, who aren't really pass rushers. That means that you might have a Judon rushing off one edge, but the other edge could be someone like a Christian Barmore or like Daniel Equale or an Armand Watts, who they're good players, and Christian Barmore can play anywhere, but you don't really want him rushing off the edge. You'd rather him penetrating inside or pushing the pocket. If you're using 4-man fronts, that gives, Equale and Barmore, whoever you want beside Barmore, whoever's in the rotation, obviously, they can do their thing inside, and you have 2 actual pass rushers coming off the edges. So I would expect maybe we see more of those 4-man fronts than the 5-man, which are really more geared towards stopping the run. Obviously, they're going to be a game plan team. They're going to be a multiple front. I don't think that's going to change, especially considering Jerry Montgomery is coming from a Packers system where they're typically an odd front team as well. But I do think that they're going to put more of an emphasis on that. Also, turnovers. Maybe we see more zone coverage than we have in the past because it's really hard to get interceptions in man, considering typically you're not looking at the quarterback. So those are two things that I'll be looking out for is how they go about generating that pass rush and getting more turnovers.
Nice. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, and where the defensive coaches kind of, have remained the same, Mayo, DeMarcus Covington, Belichick.
Pellegrino.
Yeah, those guys are all coming back. I don't see a big change that Derek and I talked about it offline, and we thought they might be a little more aggressive this year. But I think the defense will probably be close to what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
That was my thoughts on that.
We kind of thought that. I mean, maybe it's a stupid assumption. I have a feeling that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive than maybe Bill, who is a little bit more of like, hey, I want to make them kind of matriculate the ball down the field. I want to keep everything in front of us. You don't want to get too upfield in the pass rush so that the quarterback doesn't have a lane to escape. I feel like Mayo and Covington could be a little bit more aggressive. Do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? I'm just curious.
I'll say I think Bill's defenses were aggressive when he had units that had a lot of chemistry. Like when they've been together for a long time and everybody was healthy, like when you started seeing them get a little more conservative was like in 2022, where you saw way more zone coverage, but they also didn't have a big boundary corner who could really follow guys. You had a lot of small guys on the outside. So I think that was what was behind a lot of the more zone heavy looks. Last year, the Patriots actually blitzed a decent amount. I think they were like top 10 in blitz rate or something like that. But that was to make up for the fact that they didn't have Judon. It seemed more like a desperation thing than something they really wanted to do. But like when you look at like when Hightower was back there and like all the linebackers, like with Van Noy and all those guys, that's when you saw the Flores, like a lot of cover zero, a lot more aggressive looks. And even at the beginning of last season against the Eagles, I think they ran cover zero like 8 or 10 times or something. Like maybe that might be a lot, but I remember it was way more than what they had used in any game the season before. So when they're at full strength, I think they want to be aggressive and dictate, because even with their personnel groupings, you see they do dictate to other teams where they'll play dime against nickel and have Kyle Duggar as a linebacker. And it's like, yeah, I know what you want to do. We're telling you what you're going to do, because Kyle Duggar can take on a lineman every once in a while. And obviously he's better than almost any other linebacker in coverage. So personnel wise, I think you really see that this is a team that tries to make sure that they're the one who are kind of controlling the game flow. So yeah, I think the aggressiveness is still going to say about what we've seen when these defenses are at their peak, maybe just a different style of it, which is really going to be the interesting thing, because other than the 4-man front stuff, they haven't really tipped their hand into what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think that's like a fascinating element of it'll be one of those things that people talk about when it's closer to the regular season. But I feel like it's the same kind of thing as a lot of people were kind of going into the draft, like, oh, this is a Patriots type of pick. Oh, well, this is going to be a Patriots kind of defense or whatever. And it's like, we don't really know what that is right now, because we don't know what kind of coach Gerard Mayo is going to be. We're just making assumptions because we've known Bill and we know that Gerard is a disciple of Bill, but we don't know that that's going to be the exact same kind of guy that Elliott and Gerard want in the system. Like, that's not going to be the same kind of defense that, Mayo and Covington run versus, what we've seen. We don't really know. It's just kind of it's like uncharted territory a little bit. So I find it kind of fascinating.
I will say to that point, one thing that's important to remember is, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, there are ways that this defense could get better. Again, it's pass rush, it's turnovers, missing Gonzalez, Equale, Judon. Like, those guys were a big part of that as well. But these are guys who came up in this style of defense, and it worked out pretty well for them. So again, I don't think we're going to see like massive shifts in what they do, but I think it's going to be more kind of, again, like the 4-man front. I don't think that's something that most fans are going to notice right away, where if they're playing more, true like 4-2 kind of looks, I don't think fans are going to be like, oh my God, it's a new, like, I think it's going to be stuff where it takes more of a deep dive to really see what's different. But again, like you said, these are guys with different mentalities. They do sound like they want to be more aggressive in whatever form that takes. So still, that is going to be interesting to see, but I don't think it's going to be like a vastly different system than what we've seen already.
What are your thoughts on Elliott Wolf and and co. What are your thoughts on basically the front office and Elliott Wolf and how they've handled this offseason? I feel like they've put a big emphasis on kind of retaining players they want to build around. Obviously, rewarding guys like David Andrews got that extension. I'm not sure it necessarily means he's going to be here an extra year, but I also think that it's really a point of emphasis for them to go ahead and make sure that they retain the guys and they build around the guys and reward the guys that have been good soldiers for them as they kind of turn the page a little bit from Bill. What are your thoughts on how Elliott Wolf's handled this offseason to this point?
I think Wolf, kind of like Mayo, was just a perfect guy to take over for that role for Bill, where obviously Mayo is as a coach, and as for Wolf, it's more being in charge of the front office. Because Wolf obviously has experience from his father, Ron Wolf. Like, nepotism is alive and well in the NFL.
Yes, it is.
Came up through the ranks and really put the work in, but also has intimate knowledge of how one of the best general managers in the history of the sport operated. He's seen that. He's also seen how Bill worked, and he's been there for some really bad drafts in New England, just bad seasons in general. So I think you saw he clearly understood, like, we got to treat people better. We have to make sure players feel respected and like we want them to be here, especially if they do play well for us. We want to make sure that we support our young quarterback. Like cardinal sins that the Patriots were committing that had them losing personnel, losing players, completely ruining the round quarterback. Like, say what you want about Mac. I don't think anybody could have foreseen what he was going to become in 2022, much less in 2023, after what we saw as a rookie. Like, he was a point guard. We all knew that. And they just didn't give him anybody to really play off of or deliver the ball to or to help protect him. So I really like what Wolf did when it came to the actual GM search or executive vice president of personnel search, whatever they want to call it. It was pretty obvious that he deserved the job because he did such a good job retaining the free agents. The only guys they lost were more, Miles Bryant, I think, is the biggest one they lost. And we'll see, because I thought he was just so consistent and so stable in a room that had a lot of injuries, a lot of guys who were kind of up and down. He's the one guy where I'm like, I'll see how this plays out, because Marcus Jones' health status is just, he's obviously ended the last 2 seasons on injured reserve. But then like Pharaoh Brown and Mac Wilson, solid players, but they're not like huge guys to lose. But everybody else they were able to retain. Then you extend Barmore, you extend Andrews, guys who, like you said, have done great stuff for you. And Barmore was huge. He might be one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Sure. And then on top of that, the draft, we see them double dip at quarterback, which I mentioned I didn't love the double dip necessarily, but I like the idea behind it at least. You double dip a receiver with 2 guys who fit your quarterback. You also double dip on the offensive line. And Clayton Robinson seemed like this crazy pick to everybody. It's like, oh, that was a reach. I had him in the 5th or 6th or whatever. But if they think he's a guy who can start for them, especially another thing I love is that in the draft room, we saw way more people than what they usually have. I think it's important to not just have your own perspective and be like, well, I'm not to disrespect Bill. I have an infinite respect. But the fact that he was strong-arming the draft process and being like, oh, well, I heard from Herm Edwards that N'Keal Harry's the guy, so I'm going to go with him. People Samuel and A.J. Brown are kind of clowns because they're joking around with each other in the visit. Like, stuff like that where you're kind of screwing over people who've done so much work to understand these prospects and really think they're good because you don't like them. So involving coaches and scouts to get different perspectives, and Elliott Wolf kind of being the middleman who didn't really tell people what he thought, but was listening to different opinions before he made the final decision, I think is huge. And we'll see how it plays out, obviously. But if they think that Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson fit their scheme and they look like guys who could potentially end up playing as rookies, I don't have any issues with the picks or where they were necessarily taken. So I really think it's hard to discredit anything that Elliott Wolf's done. Maybe they didn't get that top receiver, but they tried. They went after Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't have given Calvin Ridley 4 years, $92 million. At the time, it's like, all right, when you don't really know what the plan is, they do need a alpha-ish guy. And I was like, if you got to throw money at him, sure. But it was that I'm like, that's a lot. This guy's going to be 30 years old. I don't love it. But yeah, long-winded answer, but I really do like what Wolf did in terms of keeping the guys that were doing what they were supposed to do and then adding young offensive talent that was desperately needed on this offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the big three, I say the big three in terms of needs for this team, it's no secret before the draft, quarterback, receiver, tackle. It was going to be hard for them to address everything at a totally max level. But, to your point, they took the quarterback, obviously, and all 3 of us are really happy about that. The receivers, they took 2 guys in the draft who we think will complement the quarterback well, to use your term. And I'm a big fan of Polk, and I think Baker. I think especially where they got Baker, tremendous value. There are some people like Lewis Riddick's one of my favorites, and he's super high on Caden Wallace. So we'll see. I was joking with Paul Perillo a couple weeks ago that I think it's hilarious that Penn State thinks they had 2 left tackles when the NFL can't find 15 good ones, but apparently they think they had 2 on the same roster at Penn State. So I guess we'll see about that. But I by the way, it's a lock. If you want to make money, they're taking a left tackle in the draft next year, first round. You can just mail that in now. So we'll discuss that, at a different time. Steve, do you want to ask another question before we let Taylor go?
I kind of wanted to. Well, it probably would take a long time. We'll have you back on again soon. I'd like to discuss something later on down the road in terms of this team. But when it comes to these early team building OTAs, and we've been there before, you can't put too much stock in them, but at the same time, you're excited to see football players doing football stuff, right? Is there anything you're looking forward to in mini camp that will be coming up soon?
The youth revolution, man. That's what because that's going to be the difference maker for this team. Especially the receivers, Drake Maye, I don't think you got to rush him onto the field, but if these young receivers can be contributors early, that's where I think this team starts to be better than people expect them to be. Maybe a sneaky playoff contender, because that's the juice that the receiving core is lacking outside of like a Pop Douglas, where I really like Kendrick Bourne. He's coming off an ACL injury, isn't even going to be in OTAs. KJ Osborne, no Juju, or solid possession receivers, but not guys that much less scary you, but really they're just intermediate to short threats. And if you get Javon Baker being able to win one-on-one, which even Elliott Wolf said before the draft, they didn't really have that kind of guy. And then Jalen Polk, who won, I think he's going to be an immediate contributor because he's their best run blocker from day one. Washington had him blocking linebackers, safeties, defensive linemen, and he was fired up about it. So I think he's going to be a quick contributor, but also his ability to win at all 3 levels and play at every spot. If those 2 guys are heavy parts of the rotation, if not starters, I think this offense is going to surprise people. So I'm hoping that they can seize roles, if not early on, at least, mid to late through camp. And then we see them kind of carry that momentum into the preseason and then the regular season. So fingers crossed on that one.
All right. I'm going to end this show here with 3 random questions, Taylor. All right. I'm going to throw them totally non-football related. All right.
I told you he's going to throw that curveball at you.
No, it's not that serious. All right. Favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni. I'm a purist, man.
Same.
Straightforward.
Same. All right. If Taylor is going to a bar with his friends, what is he ordering at the bar? What's your drink of choice?
It's Tito's and soda. Again, I'm a simple man.
You were in LA too long. That's what it is.
I don't know if I want to say that. I'm going to say LA drinks are very expensive, so let's just say I wasn't going to the bar to get my drinks.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that one.
First time I got a $15 tab after getting 1 drink, I was like, never again. I'm never doing
this. It's really hard to rationalize that. I totally get it. All right, and last one is favorite vacation spot. If you're going on vacation, and I'll throw out the side thing too is you can also mention a place that you've never been to that you want to go to.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say I'm pretty poor. I don't go on vacation very often. I will go with Bermuda. I went there when I was a kid. It was great. Maybe it'll be like a little nostalgia hit for me, but I thought it was like pink sand and shit. It was crazy. So yeah, we'll go with the easy answer. I'm a very simple man. You're not getting a lot of curveballs from me, but that's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
All right. I had to finish it with something like that. I couldn't help myself, All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening live. We had a ton of live viewers, which is awesome. I want to ask everyone to please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots can find us. I want to thank Taylor for coming on the show. Honestly, man, it's been so great to catch up with you. Please, if you want to give yourself a plug, go right ahead.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. You do tremendous work. Again, very honored to be on. Can't wait to come back. But yeah, so you mentioned the Javon Baker piece, Steve. I actually have a Jalen Polk piece coming out later this week on CLNS Media. And then Patriots Press Pass is where I have my show, Pat's Daily. I try to live up to the name. Usually Monday through Thursday, we'll have at least one show a day. I actually had a couple yesterday with Jared Bailey and Ted Nguyen. Some pretty interesting topics there. So if you can stand this mug some more, feel free to check out our YouTube. But we also have podcasts. So, if you can stand the voice and you don't really want to see the face, then you can check us out there on all streaming platforms.
It's funny. You just talked about Patriots Press Pass. I just had it pop up on my screen.
We're busy.
Showing off the arm.
Pumping up the content, baby. We will make sure to keep you entertained.
No, man, you are honestly, I think you are a rising star, and I love your work. You're a great read. You have great insight, and I'm not just saying this because you came on the podcast. Although I do kiss ass if I need to, but it has nothing to do with that. Honestly, I just think I think you are just tremendous, and so keep up the great work. Thank you so much for coming on. I want to thank everyone listening live, and we will see you guys next week.